My name is Kristen Chang. I am the Assistant Director of the Master of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics program. Welcome. First off, good job being so early. I'm very impressed. No one's like rushing in at 6 o'clock. I forget what I was going to say. Oh, I will probably stick a little bit over here. I am trying to record this for students, a number of students that were unable to attend. So I just wanted to let you know in advance. But welcome. Just so I have a lay of the land in terms of who is here, raise your hand if you are science option HNFE. Nice and high for me. Okay. Raise your hand if you are dietetics option. Oh, wow. Okay. And then raise your hand if you are a senior. Okay. Junior? Any sophomores? Oh, very nice mix. Okay, well, welcome. This is a more generalized info session about the program. That being said, I'm more than happy to expand upon anything that I share today. Please feel free to ask questions. And if you think you're interested in pursuing the program and especially applying in our next application cycle, the next application due date is February of 2022 for a fall 2022 start date. I would definitely encourage you to follow up and attend our open house session that's later this fall. That date's at the end of the slides, but that is November 6th if you want to put it on your calendar. Location to be determined, but it'll probably be on campus or at the Corporate Research Center, probably 10 a.m. We just try to finalize those details. So the open house event is really great to give you a much more detailed view of the program and to meet the other program members of the program leadership team. So Dr. Annette Larson-Meyer is the program director. I serve as the assistant director, so I do a lot of the management of the day-to-day activities and teaching the program. And then Janine Simon works for Carillion Clinic, and she serves as the coordinator for a lot of the supervised practice, or I should say all the supervised practice opportunities available through Carillion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Are there any questions before we get started? Awesome. All right. Is everyone here familiar with what a registered dietitian is? Okay, so I'm not going to spend as much time on that, but I will talk a little bit about the pathway to become a dietitian just because a lot has changed in the past couple of years, and especially because we're coming up on the 2024 deadline that requires a master's degree or a graduate degree to sit for the certification exam. And then our program a few years ago created a new pathway, a different model of education, which is different than what was in the past. So traditional education requirements to become a dietitian, up until I think 2018, you had to do an undergraduate ASCEND accredited didactic program in Nutrition and Dietetics. Those of you that are enrolled in our current DPD program are familiar with what that means. After doing that, getting a verification statement, you would apply for and match to an internship program, which is typically 8 to 12 months in length and full-time supervised practice. And then you would be eligible to take the national exam to become a registered dietitian. The rest of this is like what you would do after becoming an RD. That being said, starting January 1st, 2024, as I mentioned a minute ago, the Commission on Dietetics Registration is requiring all future dietitians to have this says master's degree, but really it's a graduate level degree before sitting for the credentialing exam. So if you get a PhD, you would be eligible as well. So in 2018, ASCEND, the Accreditation Council in Education and Nutrition Dietetics, released this new future education model program, or pathway, which basically allows, it had a few different intentions, but one of the main things is that any student with a bachelor's bachelor's degree in any area could apply to programs, these future education model graduate programs, as like a direct entry pathway into the field of dietetics. There's a few other qualities that I'm going to talk about here in a minute, but that is just one feature about our program that I want to highlight. So those of you that are coming from HNFE Science-option or even a different academic background, we have students that came into the program from public health, biochemistry, wildlife and fisheries science. As long as they met certain prerequisites, they were able to do direct entry into the program without a verification statement, so to speak. All right, so as I mentioned, in 2018, Ascend began accrediting new programs under this future education model. It's a model that's very similar to what PT schools use as well, where again, you can come from any academic background, and as long as you've met certain program prerequisites, directly apply and pursue that degree. Other aspects of the future education model beyond this direct entry pathway is that, I'm trying to see if I say this in a few minutes. No. It integrates didactic learning, so graduate level coursework with supervised experiential learning. So our program is not where you do your master's degree first and then the internship second. Our program is integrated in that you are balancing graduate level courses and supervised experiential learning, blending them together where you're able to learn and then apply within a shorter period of time. And it's meant to be progressive in nature. Again, and building competency over the course of the program to where at the end you've met competency associated with entry-level practice. The future education model also is meant to prepare dietitians for the future of the profession, and that's based on a visioning process that occurred from ASCEND, the Accreditation Council for Education, Nutrition and Dietetics, the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, and CDR. And so within the program, you develop skill sets that are needed to elevate the role of the dietitian in various practice settings, and then again, address areas of future practice. So we have certain competencies that you would demonstrate in the program that are actually meant to help expand scope of practice for the dietitian in the future. So HNFE, Human Nutrition, Foods, and Exercise, launched this program in 2018 as part of the first cohort of future education model programs in the country, which was pretty exciting. We accepted our first students in fall of 2019. Our first class had about 11 students, and they have all graduated and they're all employed in the field, which is really neat to see at this point. We just started our third cohort of students last week. All right, so in providing an overview of the program, the degree itself is 51 credits. It's a non-thesis master's degree program. So you are not expected to do a major research project in thesis within this program because it's professionally oriented. Instead, that time is spent towards supervised practice and other capstone projects. 32 credits of that are dedicated towards graduate level coursework. 19 credits are dedicated to supervised practice, or what you would traditionally call internship, over 4 different rotations. If you picked up the handout, it provides a curriculum for the Track 2 versus Track 1 pathway, and I'll talk about the difference here in a minute. But one of the things is with this 19 credits, each credit of supervised practice equates to 50 hours. So in the program, you do approximately 950 hours through professionally placed practice, supervised practice, and then probably an additional 300 or so hours of what we call alternative supervised practice that's integrated within your coursework. The future education model actually doesn't have a minimum number of hours required like traditional internship programs do. The traditional internships are required to do 1,200 hours. That being said, we still build in that many hours as based on what we predict is necessary to achieve competency across the different areas. Yes?
Does the internship and supervised practice start does it start the first year or the second year? Because I know there's the accelerated program.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay. So as I mentioned earlier, but just to be abundantly clear, completion of the program imparts the ability to sit for the RDN exam. When you graduate, you'll get both that master's degree and a verification statement, which imparts eligibility to sit for the exam. And then our program emphasis is nutrition counseling for behavior change. So it's designed to prepare our graduates with advanced skills in the areas of counseling and communication. And I personally am a really big fan of the emphasis, partially because I got to help design it, but and I come from a background of counseling in private practice, but I really think that the counseling and communication skills that our students learn and gain are very translatable to all areas of practice, even if you don't see yourself doing direct counseling with patients. One great example is management. There's a lot of transferable skills between communication counseling and effective leadership and management. All right, so there's 2 tracks available for the program. Track 1 is what we call our traditional pathway, and that is designed for students seeking the dietitian credential that has a bachelor's degree or will have, and either has met specific prerequisites if you're coming from a non-dietetics background, or has an MSND verification statement. So track 1 is 17 months total, starting each fall, and we do have a minimum GPA requirement of 3.0. It's definitely a very fast-paced, condensed program. Part of the purpose is really just to help our graduates. We want them to be full-time within the program, and then just getting out into the field a little faster with less financial burden. Track 2 is what we traditionally call the accelerated BS-MS program, or bachelor's to master's program. So this is designed for current undergraduate HNFE dietetics students for them to apply in the spring of their junior year for a fall start. So they would start the program the fall of their senior year and complete 12 credits of graduate coursework that first year, alongside of finishing their normal undergraduate coursework, and then continue on full-time within the program. That track is 22 months, including their senior year of your DPD program. To make it a little bit more clear, that track pathway puts you would finish 1 year post-DPD completion with your master's and the supervised practice. And this one does require a 3.4 minimum GPA to apply. Are there any questions about the 2 pathways? Yes.
So for the traditional pathway, if we apply for that, we need to take the GRE test?
No, you do not require GRE to apply. My favorite aspect. I like to make everyone's life easier. Any other questions? Yes.
How many seats are there in each program? What's the size of the program?
So there's 20 seats total, and we aim for an even split of 10 and 10 between the 2 tracks. Yes.
On average, how many do you have to find?
Oh, that's a tough question. That's always a tough question because we're so new, or we haven't had consistent application cycles. It's grown every year. I'm trying to think. I think we had 26 applicants for 10 spots for track remembering correctly. We do predict that that number is going to increase. I couldn't tell you by how much. Another thing I'll say is both tracks do have the same curriculum in terms of what goes into those 51 credits, but the order is going to be different. So track one has specific prerequisites if you're not coming from an undergraduate dietetics practice or didactic program in nutrition and dietetics. It is a pretty lengthy list. If you're coming from HNFE Science-option, you should have most of these already completed because there's a lot of overlap with your undergraduate coursework. I think the most common one that students have to make up is food selection and preparation lab. And then the other major prerequisites, so we require our students to be Serve Safe Manager trained or certified. Track 2, if you're in the dietetics program, you'll get that through your undergraduate coursework, so you don't have to do that. Track 1, you would have to do that before the program starts, and I always tell students that they can work on that after they're accepted. Like, don't feel like you have to do this to apply. Because it's very easy to do over the summer prior to the program start. Yes?
For organic chemistry, it is only 1 semester, right?
Yes. Yes, and surveys appropriate.
For statistics, is it biostat?
Yes. Yes. We saw both. Yeah. Okay. I'm not sure how many people would be in this situation, but we do accept students for track 1 who are actively working on their prerequisites. We can accept you under provisional status as long as you have an established plan of study to be able to finish the prerequisites by the program start date. So, like, if you are in the situation where you need to take metabolic nutrition and health counseling over the summer, that's probably what the majority of students do that are finishing up some of their prerequisites in the summer months. Yes?
Just to be clear, the introduction to statistics is just as acceptable as biostat?
Yes. Yes. Any statistics, to my knowledge, is acceptable. Yes? Yes. If you receive transfer credit into Virginia Tech for like an AP course, statistics, chemistry, psychology, I don't know if they offer that. Yes, that would count. Good questions. We also allow you to complete these at the community college as well. I know some students have taken microbiology and lab from the community college system. The other thing I was just going to say, there's no minimum grade set for prerequisite courses that you have to meet, but competitive candidates typically score a B or higher in most of these classes. All right, so I'm going to spend a few minutes walking through the curriculum. I'll talk through track 1 first. Again, that's that condensed 17 months, and then we'll talk about the track 2 curriculum. So first year fall for track 1 is a lot of foundational knowledge. So you're not doing any supervised practice in that first semester. You have advanced medical nutrition therapy, a research methods course, theories of counseling and consultation, which is specific to our counseling emphasis, and then principles of dietetics and nutrition practice, which is sort of like an introduction to the field and exploring different career directories and talking about leadership traits. And that would be with me. I get to teach that class. The new thing with this year, we implemented a choice elective. We used to require graduate level of statistics, but we decided to drop that in favor of an elective. So there is no winter semester. You do get that winter off. First year spring, second semester advanced medical nutrition therapy, a public health nutrition policies and program course, which is sort of like the intersection of community nutrition and nutrition-related public policy. Nutrition counseling for behavior change. This is a neat course because has anyone heard of the HNFE Nutrition Counseling Service? Yeah, so this course contributes to that service. So you would be actively learning about counseling skills while also counseling members of the Virginia Tech community in a supervised setting. Really great course as part of our counseling emphasis. Business of Dietetics and Healthcare, and then Dietetics and Professional Management. So Track 1 students, you're starting your first supervised practice rotation at the end of the spring semester. This rotation is not 14 weeks. It starts about 6 to 8 weeks before the end and then runs into the end of the spring. Summer, you've got one course, Food for Optimal Health. So this course explores the intersection of, I'm trying to think the best way to describe it, food insecurity, agricultural practice, food production practices, food service management, and nutrition for chronic disease prevention. Really, really quite a neat course. And then a lot of nutrition communications built into that as well. We've got 2 different supervised practice rotations for Track 1 that run in the summer months. The first is community nutrition, and then the second is going to be food service management. And I apologize, this is typo. You do 4 credits of community and 3 credits of food service management for that summer. So the last semester of Track 1 is clinically focused. So clinical nutrition, and this directly builds upon the medical nutrition therapy courses that you took in the first year. So you've got clinical nutrition SEL. You can see at 10 credits, you're spending a lot of time in the clinical setting, about 500 hours. It's a 14-week rotation. A lot of basic clinical nutrition, but then some specialty practice areas sprinkled throughout based on your personal professional interest areas. The clinical nutrition care applications course is like a lab type component that runs alongside of clinical to help you to build some more advanced competencies. And then professional practice in nutrition and dietetics, Dr. Annette Larson-Meyer teaches this, and it's a lot of it's geared towards tying up some key aspects of the program, like leadership and involvement and ethical cases, but also a lot of the time in this course is spent preparing you to apply for jobs and do interviewing, negotiations, etc.
The clinical internship, that's at the Carillion Clinic?
Yes.
Where is that? That's in Roanoke, isn't it? How long does it take to get there? Because we'll have to be commuting, right?
Yes. So the question is, Carillion, to answer the question, Carillion Clinic is our major partner for supervised practice with this program. That doesn't mean all rotations are with Carillion Clinic, but Carillion does exclusively provide the clinical rotation. And the major hub for that rotation is Roanoke Memorial Hospital. They call it the mothership. And that is a level 1 trauma center and really where the best experience and the best training for clinical dietetics is. That is about a 50-minute drive from Blacksburg. We do recommend our students, and we tell all of them when they get in the program, but it's not going to hurt to tell you now, to consider moving to Roanoke or living closer to Roanoke for that final semester, because the commute back and forth on top of clinical can be a lot for some people. And I'm happy to answer more questions about that after the main presentation. So Track 1 graduates in the winter. Pretty quick program. I wanted to give you some general figures for the Track 1 investment, and this represents the total cost of the program based on in-state or out-of-state tuition. And I want to emphasize that it's an estimate, and this is based on current tuition rates. The university does update their tuition every single year. So to get like the most accurate figure, you would want to refer to the bursar's office and the rates available. Just know for Track 1, you are enrolled for 3 semesters of fall spring tuition rates and 1 semester of summer. The summer tuition is slightly different. Full-time for each semester. All right, so switching over to Track 2, there are a few prerequisites or application requirements for Track 2. First, you have to be a current HNFE Bachelor of Science Dietetics-option student with junior status, or going into your senior year, essentially, when you apply. You do need to have a 3.4 GPA by the end of that junior year. And as part of the application process, we ask you to submit 2 things. One is a DARS report that basically tells us what you have left to complete for your degree. And then to have your academic advisor sign off on a proposed plan of study for what you're going to take in your senior year. That just tells us that it's feasible for you to enroll in the program on top of the remaining undergraduate coursework requirements. All right. So as I said earlier, Track 2 is about 22 months. And it comes out to 1 year post-undergraduate graduation. So in your first year, you're taking a total of 6 credits per semester. So 12 credits graduate coursework that first year as you're finishing up your other undergraduate courses. Those courses are Advanced Medical Nutrition Therapy, Theories of Counseling and Consultation, and Public Health Nutrition Policies and Programs. So Advanced Medical Nutrition Therapy double counts for both your undergraduate and graduate degree, just so that's clear. Once you finish that first year spring, so your senior year, when you wrap up your undergraduate degree, that's when you officially become graduate students. So you're actually considered undergraduate status still until you finish, and you're paying undergraduate tuition rates that first year. So then you would enroll full-time into the program or continue full-time in the program as an official graduate student. In that summer, you've got the Nutrition Counseling for Behavior Change course, so working with the HNFE Counseling Service, Food for Optimal Health, which I mentioned earlier, and that summer is when you would start your first supervised practice rotation in dietetics and professional management, along with this Business of Healthcare and Dietetics course. One thing I didn't say earlier, the Business of Dietetics and the Dietetics and Professional Management courses, or this is a course, this is a supervised practice rotation, they go hand in hand. They nicely blend and build upon each other, which I think is really neat. So for the second year of the program, second year fall is purely a blend of courses and supervised practice. 3 different courses. 1 is the research methods, 2 is the principles of nutrition and dietetics practice, and the 3rd is going to be that choice elective. Technically, you could take that choice elective in the summer as well if you want it. I think you're going to have a lot more options in the fall. And we don't recommend taking it in your last semester just because of how much is already going on during the clinical rotation. So first year or second year fall, you're balancing courses with a community nutrition and food service management rotation. What that looks like, the students are at their practice sites Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and courses are on Tuesday, Thursdays. And then that final semester, similar to Track 1, is very clinically focused. And you would graduate in the spring. Are there any questions about the curriculum before I move forward? Yes.
So just with the dietetic internship, that will get you certified as an RD is included into the master's program?
Yes. So the program integrates, we don't call it internship, we call it supervised experiential learning. But all the supervised experiential learning that you need to qualify for the RDN exam is included within our program. Yep. So here we've got listed 3. One is a clinical nutrition supervised practice, community nutrition, food service management, and then the other was dietetics and professional management. Any other questions? All right, so 2 more things about track 2. This is just a sample senior year schedule. I'll come right back to you. For track 2 students who are doing that accelerated BSMS option, purely meant to be a sample schedule. What I recommend is getting with your academic advisor and talking through what your actual schedule might look like. I will tell you, we have some students that are taking the minimum to be full-time, and we have some students who are much higher, closer to 16 to 17 credits. It just depends on where you are in your plan of study and how much you want to tackle course-wise. Yes?
So I was going to ask, so you said Monday, Wednesday, and Friday will be doing supervised practice and Tuesday, Thursday courses.
Yes.
So Monday, Wednesday, Friday will be having to travel to Roanoke.
It depends on where you're placed. Not all practice sites are in Roanoke, and I'm about to talk about that. Yep. Just some figures in terms of, again, these are considered estimates, and these figures for tuition include senior year tuition. So this is senior year tuition and that 1 year post-senior year to finish the program. Sometimes people see this and think it's per semester. Definitely not. And again, these are considered estimates. Please don't hold me to this. And they're based on current tuition rates, which can change next fall. I guess the last thing I should have said about this. So our program does qualify for financial aid, and financial aid is utilized by most of our students in that regard. Some of the internship programs don't qualify, is my understanding. All right, supervised experiential learning. So this is always a favorite topic of everyone. As I said earlier, Carilion Clinic is considered our major partner when it comes to supervised practice. And as you can see, they have a very wealthy list of opportunities for our students across the different areas of practice, whether it be clinical, food service management, or community-based nutrition. Yes?
When you're doing the experiential learning, I obviously, like, there's classes and, like, one of them's going to be, like, food service, but, like, within that, do you have any flexibility to be like, hey, I'd rather be in this kind of setting versus that kind of setting, or are you just, like, assigned to a site?
So when it comes to site assignments in terms of where you go for community, food service management, at least those 2 rotations, because all the clinical is in Carilion,
Right.
We do take into account students' professional development goals and a number of other factors, including living, location, and personality. Personality is actually a big thing we take into account because we want you to be a good fit for your preceptor as well. And a few other factors that go into that. So we typically survey our students in the first year fall to gather a lot of information about their supervised practice preferences. And then, I'm not sure what we're going to do now that we're up to 20 students. Then I usually follow up with each student individually to sort of clarify their responses and talk through some of the potential options. From there, it's just like a big puzzle. So we can't guarantee your first choice, and we can't guarantee any specific practice site just because things happen. Like, for example, Carilion typically has a great peds rotation, pediatric rotation during clinical, but they just had turnovers. They have a brand new pediatric dietitian who's a new read. Not really ready to take on interns this semester, but we expect that she'll be back and ready in the spring and accepting students. So we can't guarantee any specific rotation, but we do try to work with your personal interests and do our best to match according to that. So yeah, Curlian has a wealth of different rotation options. These are scattered throughout Southwest Virginia. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities in Roanoke, but they also utilize New River Valley Hospital, Franklin Memorial Hospital, which is just south of Roanoke. They might, where is it? They have a new hospital up in Lexington, Rockbridge that they might use in the future, depending on where a student is living. And then the rest are really, again, in that Roanoke region. Of course, with us being Virginia Tech, we do offer Virginia Tech practice sites as well. So our most popular sites, Virginia Tech Athletics is always very popular. Even more so now that they just opened a new Student Athletic Performance Center, which I will just say is gorgeous. VT Dining Services always puts together a awesome food service management rotation. And then we also work with Virginia Cooperative Extension and the Family Nutrition Program for community-based rotations. And those can be either in Blacksburg or Roanoke, or I think Pulaski is another potential site, because Extension is all throughout the state. We do enlist some other possible sites that aren't listed here. We try to stick primarily with the Virginia Tech and Curlian practice sites, but there is some flexibility beyond that, just depending on the specific site situation for a given year and the student's personal interests. All right, so I'm going to pause there before going into the application. What questions do you have about what I've shared so far? Gives me the opportunity to breathe. Yes.
So, does everyone do a little bit of everything? So everyone do some of this, and then also the like clinical rotations, or is it just where you're interested?
Everyone does set a certain number of hours for each rotation. So I would say that we provide a nice, well-rounded supervised practice experience throughout the program. We don't have like a specific emphasis in that regard.
Are all of the clinical hours in one like specialty, or do you get to pick around and try different things?
So the question is, are all the clinical hours in one specialty area? And the answer is no. All students will do like general med search, and that's like general, like basically a variety of different disease states and a lot of nutrition education. I believe all students will do a critical care ICU rotation, and there's a few others that everyone does, like inpatient rehab, diabetes management. I think that's it. From there, our supervised practice coordinator elicits your input in terms of areas of interest, and you do specialty rotations from there. So some of the specialty rotations, I'll try to list them all, I can't promise. We have weight management, we have cardiac rehab, pediatrics, NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, PICU, pediatric intensive care, oncology, long-term care and renal are two rotations that we're adding this year. There might be more. That's all I can remember today. And then students that are really interested in critical care might be in that rotation longer to get more experience. That's actually been a really popular rotation. Good question. Any other questions? Yes.
How long are the clinical days usually? What time do they go in?
So typically 8 hours, but it varies depending on your preceptor and your work schedule. Some I think work pretty early, like 7 to 3. Some work in normal, like 9 to 5. think starting this year, Wednesdays, they get out early. Like, they don't have clinical in the afternoon, but they have that time is dedicated to project work. Yes.
This is just maybe an outside question, but if you find a clinical like option that you think you really enjoy, is there a way to present that to the college and see if you can get credit from that, or is it just based on the list?
So Carillion is our exclusive partner for clinical, with the exception of rotations that they cannot provide. So like right now, they don't have like a renal outpatient facility and they don't do long-term care. So we can partner with and place students in those rotations. I'm not sure if we'll add others beyond that. Yeah. They have been pretty flexible with us, but I can't give you like a hard and fast answer. Like we do have one student who's doing a clinical research week or two, but that's with the FBRI Center in Roanoke, the Fralin Biomedical Research Institute, which is technically a Virginia Tech partner. I think a lot of students are interested in doing an eating disorder rotation. That's not something we currently have just because it's hard to find preceptors. That is something that we're actively exploring though. I just don't know if that would be during clinical or community. Some of the community-based rotations are purely community-focused, like Carillion Community Health Education Outreach or Virginia Cooperative Extension, and then Virginia Tech Athletics is very sports nutrition focused. But we do have some community rotations that are very counseling intensive, and then we integrate some of those more population group-based competencies into that setting. That makes sense. So one student this semester is doing community at Carillion Diabetes Management Program. So she'll be doing a lot of individual and group counseling. That's okay. Yeah. Thanks for coming. All right, so I'm going to move into the application process. And I knew I forgot to update something. So this is the timeline for the 2022 application cycle, where you're well past 2020 at this point. So the application deadline is February 1st, 2022. It's February 1st every year, so if you're not applying this coming year, it'll just be February 1st of the following year. We only do a fall start, and we don't do rolling admissions. I'll just go ahead and get that out. So it doesn't matter if you apply in November, or if you apply on January 31st, we view all the applications together. So, okay, timeline for this year. So the other thing I was just going to say is that you would apply directly through the Virginia Tech Graduate School. So our program does not participate in the D&D digital match that traditional internship programs do. And we don't utilize DICAS. I can talk a little bit more about that in a minute if you're in the situation where you might be participating in both. Is anyone in that situation potentially? Okay, yeah. So November 6th, 2021, save the date. That's our date for this year's open house. And like I said, I think it's like a 2.5-hour event. So we go in a lot more detail about the program. You get to do a student question and answer panel, talk to current students, learn a lot more about specific classes and rotations and projects, meet the other members of our leadership team, a few other fun things. I think it's a lot of fun. February 1st is the application deadline. So our estimated notification date for spring is March 7th. And our estimated deadline to commit or accept is April 7th. So how we work this for students who might be participating in the DICAS match is that we aim to notify you before the match re-rank or withdrawal deadline so that you're able to change your other programs accordingly. And then the actual acceptance date is, I don't know if it'll be April 7th yet because I don't know when the spring match date is, but it's usually, we're going to do it 2 days later. In terms of application requirements, so you apply through the graduate school, there is a $75 fee. You would submit a 1 to 2 page resume, and on there we're looking for relevant experiences to the field of dietetics, leadership, professional and extracurricular activities. If you participate in research, that's great to add. What I'll say is that you don't need to list only dietetic-specific experiences. A lot of people put things down that have very good translatable skills into the field of dietetics, if that makes sense. Yes?
Is 1 or 2 pages preferable? I heard from a lot of places that it's like a no-no to do more than 1 page, but
That's a very good question. So we used to be a hard and fast 1 page, and we found that most students weren't doing 1 page anyways, and B, we weren't getting that much information out of it. So 1 to 2 pages is fine. You're not going to get cut if you have 2. Yeah. All right. A personal statement. So this year we added a 7th question, and all of those questions are listed on our program website under the application details page. So there's 7 different question prompts, and that should be less than 1,200 words.
Are those
Yes.
questions already posted?
Mhm.
Oh.
Yep, they're ready. They should not be changing. And then we require 2 letters of reference. I will definitely say, well, we're definitely lenient on the 1 and 2 pages. 2 references max. We don't look at a 3rd reference. We have some students that submit 3, and we just look at the first 2 that are submitted. One that we prefer to be academically focused, so someone who can speak to your academic performance. The other we prefer to be professional or work-related reference. One thing I will say is definitely try to stir it. This doesn't come up too much, but occasionally we'll get an application that has 2 references from the same organization. I would definitely recommend 2 very different references if you can. Yes.
If they're both within Virginia Tech, is that not like an academic reference, like a teacher, but I'm also like in like the heat, like Hokey Wellness, like would that be like okay, or is that within?
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah. I think one time we had like a personal trainer supervisor and a personal trainer instructor.
Okay.
And it was just too similar. And there was a few other cases where it was like 2 references from the same small organization. So try to be, choose references that are going to, A, know you well, and of course speak highly of you. But I think having some diversity in terms of your references being able to speak to different areas is really helpful. The other thing I'll just say real quick, because I get this question every year. Now with the application system, as soon as you put in the information of your reference writer, they will automatically get an email before you submit the application in full. So an email will go out to them, and it basically has an online survey where they rate specific skill sets, and then they can submit a letter or write a paragraph to supplement their response. Yes.
should we still ask them ourselves, like, if we can use them as a reference, or is that just, or is the programs that reach out to them?
Oh no, you should definitely ask your reference person. Yeah. Always let your reference writer know in advance. So we'll just put down their information.
So they don't need to send us anything. We'll just say ask it for their permission, and then tell them they should expect something.
Correct. Yes. Yes. So you just tell them that you're going to submit your what's their preferred email, and then you put that in the system, and they'll automatically get an email to fill it out. And I believe you can track the progress in terms of whether they've submitted or not. Yes.
So I'm sure that those need to be in before the application deadline. How early should we ask?
I would ask before the end of fall. I think most reference writers prefer a lot of lead time. So November, December.
When does it open for them to begin?
Should be open November 1st.
Okay.
Please don't apply before November 1st. I probably won't be ready.
Okay.
All of our application requirements that are listed on the website is definitely accurate for this application year, but within the system itself, we need to make some small changes, if that makes sense. So don't go apply yet. Yes.
Is there a requirement for both track? Is there a requirement for both track?
The application requirements? Yes, sir. Yeah, these are consistent for both tracks. This last slide talks about differences. So each track has something additional that they have to submit on top of what I just talked about. Track 1, you would submit a prerequisite grade sheet if you're coming from a non-DPD program. Actually, I think all of our Track 1 students submit this, sorry. And that just outlines grades for required prerequisite courses and a plan to complete any outstanding coursework prior to the program start. But that ASCEND verification statement does waive the need to meet all of that listed prerequisites. I think the one thing missing here, we are asking our Track 1 DPD candidates to submit a declaration of intent. That's basically just like a signed off form from your director saying that you're on track to finish and receive that verification statement. Oops. For the accelerated BSMS program, we require again that DARS report and that plan of study that's signed off by your academic advisor. So we already got this question, but I'll still share. We accept 20 students per track across, 20 students total across the true tracks. And we aim for a 50-50 split, 10 for each. And then the most common question that I get, what can I do to be a competitive candidate? First and foremost, again, identify 2 individuals that know you well and can provide you with that strong letter of recommendation. Trying to gain hands-on experience within the field, of course, is going to be a plus. Diversity of experience is very helpful. Clinical experience is definitely very helpful. But I will say very hard to get right now. So if you're not able to get clinical experience, like don't be like pulling out your hair because you can't get in the hospital. It's hard enough to get our own students, it seems like, these days. Get involved. Take on a leadership role. That definitely stands out. If you have the opportunity to participate in research in any capacity, our program, again, is not a research program, but we definitely do emphasize research skills and a strong appreciation for research throughout the program. And so having that background is going to be an asset. We want our students to be active members of the profession. So whether that means Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics or another dietetics practice group or the student organization. What's the student organization called these days? SNDA, thank you. And then this is my other top recommendation. So we definitely emphasize graduate level writing skills within our program. And so, and this is most programs, we're not just looking for the content within your application. We're looking for a demonstration of strong writing skills within your application. So I highly recommend taking your resume and personal statement to the VT Writing Center, to Virginia Tech Career Services, and really having them help you tweak it to make it shine. Have multiple people look it over. I think it really makes a difference. All right. That is all I have. Questions? Yes.
What do you mean by being an active member of the Academy? Because I have the membership, but I don't know
able to get involved, I think that's a plus. I would say most students are simply a member. The one thing I will recommend you not do for your application, and I do see this occasionally, please don't join the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics in the middle of January just to put it on your resume. Because that doesn't really help. But if you're active if you're a member of the organization, if you are a member of the student organization, it's not just about the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. Being an active member of other student-led organizations actually works really well also. Because we would consider that professional involvement too. Any other questions? So, final words. If you didn't get a handout, there's two up here, one for track 1, one for track